welcome to a data-driven meta report. This is courtesy of Untapped.gg's new premium service. Costs like $5 a month or so, but you get access to see which decks have the highest win rate and cube rate based on all the people using their deck tracker. I do have an affiliate code for the deck tracker, so if you want to get the deck tracker, download it, use my link, I get a little bit of change. Why not? We are searching with the following parameters: collection level of 3,000 plus, player ranks from 70 to 100, and a minimum games of 500. So we're going to take a look at what the best decks are. We're going to search by win rate, then also cube rate, but we can also be excluding cards like Shuri, so we get a better idea because there's going to be so many Shuri decks. First and foremost, we have the most standard looking Shuri list I've ever seen. America Chavez is in there, which is maybe a slight surprise. Often you might see Ebony Moore in there, for example. I really like the Captain Marvel in here. This is pretty much the exact way I would play Shuri, although I'm not sure I would necessarily play Chavez, and I play Chavez in a lot of decks. We also have a very dodgy looking Agatha deck. This looks like a deck designed to farm cubes, but surprisingly it has a boosters, in fact. Surprisingly it has a high win rate of 60%. I'm not quite sure how that one's happened. I have no idea. Don't get baited into thinking this deck is actually good though, guys. Okay, this is just weird. Okay, more Shuri decks. We can see some different builds. One with Aero still. We see one with Polaris. All sorts of Shuri decks. So what we're going to go ahead and do is search without Shuri. We can exclude Shuri. We've got a Sauron one here. The first deck that's showing up, which isn't Shuri, which we'll take a quick look at now, is Electro Ramp. Remember, this is based on win rate. So when it's average cube rate, it's going to be different because this average cube rate isn't that high at 0.32. But this looks like a pretty nice build for Electro Ramp. In fact, I think it's exactly how I would play it as well. The Ebony Moore, the Sunspot. I think if I was going to make one change, I would consider playing Scorpion instead of Lizard. The reason for that is Lizard is a card you're going to play on turn 2 with this deck, and perhaps Scorpion on turn 2 is going to be better than Lizard. I think that would be the one tweak I would make. The rest of the deck just looks really smooth. Aero, actually, with Sandman decks, particularly strong right now because your opponent can only play one card. So Aero is still good in Sandman decks, and you can, of course, Odin your Aero as well. Let's take a look at the decks excluding Shuri. I love this feature that we can do. We can just get rid of Shuri and see what the other decks are. So we have a Thanos deck still up here with a 57% win rate. Not too surprised to see Thanos. Looks pretty much like the same list from last season with Quinjet going for armor. Aero still finding her way into this. I actually do think Aero is still very strong in Thanos decks in particular because it's just solid with Lockjaw. It's a nice card to pull off of Lockjaw, and you can do some decent things with it. You could definitely get rid of Aero. Another Thanos deck here, pretty much the same. We see a Zabu Dino deck now with a 57% win rate at 770 games. Again, looks a little bit like a deck from seasons gone by with the Aero still in there. So certainly something you could try and improve and tweak on, but Dinosaur looking like a solid deck. We'll also go ahead and get rid of Thanos because it seems like there's quite a lot of Thanos decks still up at the high win rate. So let's get rid of Thanos and see what else we have. We have a good cards deck. This looks like a pretty nice one, 57% win rate. No Leech in here. I think this could play Leech, possibly this deck, but just cards like Sunspot, Iceman, Scorpion. A little bit surprised at the Wave, but I suppose you can go Wave on turn 5, and that's going to mean you can play She-Hulk and another card on turn 6. I do think overall Wave into She-Hulk is a pretty underrated combo now that Aero isn't going to be so popular. Only an average cube rate of 0.29. That is rather low. But yeah, this looks like a really nice deck. We've got a Serra Control list up next. Again, these lists are not going to be perfect. It's more just getting an idea of the kind of archetypes which are performing well. But I would definitely say a lot of these lists can be improved. This looks like a nice way of playing Serra Control. Not going for the Bishop, which I like. I think Bishop is pretty overrated in these decks. But there's no Angela, which is just bizarre. Like, you definitely would like to play Angela in this. I'm not really convinced by the Polaris being in this one. But the rest of it looks pretty good. I think just swapping Polaris for Angela and you've got basically a very nice looking list. I'm also not the biggest fan of Scarlet Witch personally in these decks, but it's fine. And I think Serra Control is going to get even better with the introduction of Hitmonkey as the Battle Plus card next month. We have another good cards type list. No Wave in this one, but but it looks solid with the Red Skull as a mid-rangey card. You can zero it, of course, as well. We've got another Dinosaur deck with Zabu. We have a Kazoo deck with Dracula. This is a deck that I've been wanting to try. Pretty high average cube rate for its win rate as well at 56%. I've still not tried this deck, but Dracula, of course, can hit that Infinite or the Red Skull. Yeah, looks like a pretty solid deck. I've heard pretty good things. Got some more good card decks, some more Sarah control. We have Modok. I'm a pretty big believer in Modok. I have a really nice list coming up on my YouTube channel probably tomorrow, where instead of playing Wolverine and instead of playing Moon Knight, I have Lockjaw and Leech. And I do think it's a really serious deck. Little bit dicey, a little bit high rolly, but I climbed like 60 cubes or so with it in 2 hours. So not that surprised to see Modok doing quite well right now. With the fact that Leech isn't as popular, it should be performing pretty decently. We have some more similar looking decks with like a Kazoo Dracula, Electro Ramp, another Modok deck. We have Jeff's Bounce deck here, performing quite well at a win rate of 54%. I'm surprised its average cubes is so low though. My experience playing against this deck is it's really difficult to tell exactly how many points they have in their hand coming into that last turn. Alright, we'll take a look now at the decks with high cube rate. There's a Galactus deck also up here, doing quite well in its win rate at 53%. I think for a Galactus deck, that's not too bad at all. It's playing Nimrod, but again, the minimum amount of games having to be played in this one is quite high. I almost dropped my microphone. All right, let's look at the decks with the highest cube rate then, without Shuri or Thanos. So Modok actually right up there. We've got Sarah Control also looking pretty good. Not too surprising to see Sarah Control. But yeah, Modok looking like a really serious deck. Particularly when you consider the fact that Leech and Lockjaw improved this deck dramatically. Kazoo's doing quite well. Zabu Dinosaur. A lot of the same decks that we just looked at. Galactus quite high up there. We've got some Electro. So you can sort of miss the negative actually doing quite well. A win rate of only 46%, but an average cube rate of 0.26. Not too surprised to see that. It's a Jane Foster one. I do think that Mr. Negative should be making a bit of a comeback with the fact that Leech has died down quite a bit. Although there's still quite a lot of Thanos decks doing the rounds. And remember, we're excluding Thanos and Shuri from these ones. Galactus up there as well. Some more good card stuff. Patriot also appearing at a win rate of around 50%. This build looks not optimal. It's playing Ultron and Onslaught Ultron and Doctor Doom, which I don't think is the way to go anymore. I think Squirrel Girl, Debris, Mysterio is a better approach. I do like the idea of playing Storm in this one though, but there's also so many Doctor Dooms doing the rounds. But Patriot definitely looks like a solid deck. I think it's one of the decks hardest to build a nice list for. This looks like a better list, although the Bishop is particularly weird. But this kind of vibe with Iron Man, I can kind of see. This looks closer to it, but again, just not exactly perfect. It's got 2,000 games, so some kind of YouTuber must have posted a list like this. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there. As you can see, quite a lot of interesting decks coming up, doing quite well. Hope you guys enjoyed this data-driven look at a meta report. Shuri and Thanos, of course, still on top, not that surprising, but there's quite a few decks coming out. Of course, if you were to like lower the cube rate as well, the games played, we might start seeing things like perhaps we can take a quick look to see how Kingpin's doing, because this is the deck that I posted a few days ago. Let's have a look to see how Kingpin's looking. So this is the Kingpin list that I played. It's got a win rate of 50%, and it's got an average cube rate of plus 0.11. So not as good as I was hoping, but it's still positive. It could be worse. It could be worse. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching the video. Give it a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more, and see you on the next one.